Hey friends, with Assembly coming up in a couple weeks, I've been getting a lot of questions about the governor's race, and I wanted to set the record straight today about some things. Many of you have heard that I'm supporting Victor Marx, and I am not. Marx approached me at a breakfast meeting late last summer for advice on running. I became hopeful, just like many of you, that his big following and his story might break through the stranglehold that the liberal media has on our elections here in Colorado. I thought perhaps we could try something different, an out-of-the-box candidate to get different results here. Imagine that. But knowing what I know now, after getting to know him as a candidate, I'm not endorsing for governor. I quietly stepped away from assisting the Marx campaign in early January. But here's why I'm speaking up now. I've been in this arena. I ran for governor of Colorado in 2022, as all of you know, outspent by more than 8-1, $4 million against Jared Polis's $33 million war chest. And to beat me, the Democrats had to manufacture attacks out of thin air. They lied about so much about who I am. That's what it takes to beat a nominee with a clean record and no skeletons, perceived or not. What I went through is a useful measuring stick for what's coming this fall. This is not an attack on Victor Marx or any of you who are supporting Marx. I was there too in the beginning. Hey, Anne, if you can hear me, I can't hear you.
Oh my God, you couldn't hear me at all, could you?
No,
Oh my God. Did you text me?
I did, but I didn't want to
I'm so
disrupt you too
sorry.
much.
I'm just sitting there droning on. Well, I gave you a really great introduction. I explained the whole process in Colorado. I can't believe I just did that. That is so funny. I actually muted myself because I was restreaming and had the volume on my phone. That is hilarious. Well, I apologize for that. For
You're
those
fine.
that didn't hear my incredible introduction of Heidi, let me kind of backtrack a little bit because Heidi, you do have, as I explained, the system of what's happening in your state right now in the contested races across the governor's race, across Senate, but most importantly, what's happening in your congressional races. I've been explaining that Colorado's been drifting and drifting to the left, and sadly, the pressure's on. But you have a really unique system with the Colorado Assembly and the fact that you're caucusing this weekend, and it starts in small precincts where a few people show up, but it goes back months before you get to what's culminating this weekend in Pueblo. And it's really, I think, one of the more unique systems that we have in the country because that's not how it works down here in Florida. But what makes you unique to this conversation, because we're going to walk people through all this, is the fact that you actually had the courage to lead the state. You actually weren't just playing politics. You are somebody who knows this battlefield better than most. You're an entrepreneur. You founded the Rocky Mountain Voice because you wanted to escalate the voice of what's happening in politics. You're a former University of Colorado regent, my alma mater, where I went to school, class of '89. But you're also the 2022 Republican nominee for governor of Colorado. So you know how this whole system works and you've taken the hits. And I think it's admirable that now you're helping shape the next phase of this fight through your media efforts, the grassroots organization, and your political strategy. So once again, welcome. That was my quick summary of what I just kind of covered for the whole audience.
That's okay, Anne. That's okay. It's Colorado's a rough place right now. It's gotten worse rather than better. I like to say it's like frogs in boiling water, and we all keep
Sure.
hoping that the water's hot enough, the frogs finally jump out, but they haven't. And I pulled up some stats on some of the congressional races, and here's an example of what's going on. In 2022, in Congressional District 4, which is where I live, which is Lauren Boebert's district,
Yep.
Ken Buck won by 24 points. Lauren won by 11 points last year, and now we're down to it's rated R+9. So that's just happened in 2 cycles. And same with CD5, we won that by R+16. Now it's rated R+5. CD3, we have problems there. It's all slowly sliding to the left, and that's how they do it, right? They incrementally take over your state and our country.
So it seems to me, Heidi, that Colorado has been eyeballed by the left for quite some time. And there's an article that was published not too long ago. I was actually just trying to pull it up. Why Colorado Democrats believe Republican seats are now competitive after the Tennessee special election. Talk to us a little bit. I'm going to pull this article up while you're talking, but explain why they think you guys are so vulnerable right now.
Well, the Democrats have done an incredible job of creating organization, lots of big donors. There's something called the blueprint, which happened a long time ago, about, let's say,
Hmm.
2000, mid 2000s. It was 4 billionaires, one of them being our governor, our current governor, who got together and decided to flip the state from mostly red to deep blue right now. And they were
Hmm.
very effective. They spent billions of dollars to get this done and very intentional about how they did it. And they truly believe in incrementalism. They're very patient. They take their time and they slowly pick off House seats in the state legislature and county commissioner seats, city council seats. And before we know it, boom, they've got the state. And so that's where we are at right now. I'm the last statewide elected Republican in Colorado, and that's from 2016 when I won the statewide regent race. Interestingly enough, against Alice Madden, who was one of the crafters of the blueprint. She was the
Hmm.
head of the legislature back then. So it's the 4 billionaires and the blueprint, and then lots of people moving in from California and other blue states because they
Right.
love these policies. And
Right.
then we've got the legalization of marijuana, which moved a very different type of person here that's very reliant on the government, not very motivated, not very entrepreneurial, which, Colorado is the Wild West. It's who we are. It's like the spirit of the
Yeah.
frontier. And that's what we miss so much. So I think those things combined with a lot of money on the Democrats' part and some very savvy consultants and a dedication, a strong dedication to getting this done has led us to a completely dark blue state now.
So that's that's a lot
Oops,
of.
and I can't hear you again.
I don't know why you can't hear me. I'm not muted. So strange. You still can't hear me? Is your speakers on? That makes no sense. I'm going to ask the audience. Can you guys hear me? Still no sound? Strange. I have no idea why it's not working. That's on. Yeah, I have my mic's on.
Let's see if I can hear you on my phone. If you can hear, let's see.
Yep. Yeah, I'm good. I'm making sound. Yeah, I have my mic's on.
Let's see
Yeah.
if I can hear you on my phone. If you can hear.
Yeah, I can hear me.
I can hear you on my phone. So when I know your audio is working, for some reason it's not coming through on mine. So
did you hit the mute button by
you
any
can
chance?
chat me the questions.
That's not going to work. Okay, so we have to figure this out somehow. Folks, just hang on one second. I'm gonna call you, Heidi. I'm gonna play another video while I deal with that. Hang on one second, guys. We'll be right back. That's not gonna work. Okay. I will. Let's see here. I'll find something interesting that we can put on until here we go. Let's put. Where's my favorite video that everybody needs to watch this one because it's important. Where is it? I've lost it because I wasn't prepared to lose mics on this. So I'm afraid I don't know what happened here. This is so strange. Okay, hold on one second. Okay, did you check your speaker?
Yep, they're good.
So I can't explain why you can't hear me. I honestly have no explanation why you can't hear me. It's really strange.
Let me try one more thing. Let's see.
Go to the little wheel on the bottom and see if the audio is coming out the right speaker. You probably somehow changed it. I don't know what happened.
Let's see. And why don't
MMTLP was not a stock. It was a Series A preferred share issued as a dividend following a reverse merger completed in June 2021 between Torchlight Energy Resources, a NASDAQ-listed oil and gas company, and Meta Materials, Inc., which at the time was listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange. As part of that merger, Torchlight's oil and gas assets were placed into a Series A preferred shares to be held by shareholders until those assets were sold or spun out. Those preferred shares were never intended to trade. No Form 211, no issuer approval, no shareholder vote. Yet, in October 2021, an unknown third party, not the issuer, requested that the ticker symbol MMTLP be assigned to those shares and made tradable on the OTC market against the company's stated intentions, against company wishes. That alone is highly irregular. But what happened next is far worse. In July 2022, Meta Materials announced plans to spin out the Torchlight oil and gas assets into a new private non-trading company called NextBridge Hydrocarbons. MMTLP shares were designated to be exchanged for common shares of NextBridge once the spinout was completed. The SEC approved that spinout in November 2022. Shareholders were repeatedly told by brokers, OTC markets, and FINRA that they would be able to trade MMTLP through December 12, 2022, before settlement. But on December 9, 2022, just days before settlement, FINRA imposed a U3 trading halt, an extraordinary halt reserved for emergencies. A U3 halt means no buying and no selling. No warning, no exit, no answers. More than 65,000 Americans were locked in, including over 200 military veterans who trusted the system they served. Retail investors were trapped, while short positions were frozen in place. But short sellers who had made millions were never forced to close. Broker dealers who loaned out the shares to those short sellers avoided billions in exposure. If this were about settlement risk, trading could have been extended. If this were about fraud, the rules already provided remedies. Instead, the sell button was removed. This wasn't investor protection. What followed wasn't just financial damage. Families were destroyed, businesses collapsed, life savings were erased. Some investors lost their homes, some lost their livelihoods, and tragically, some took their own lives under the weight of what this halt did to them and their families. This was not an abstract market event. This was real harm to real people. 3 years later, a FOIA request produced a bombshell. Emails showing direct communication between the Financial Information Forum, a trade organization representing major broker-dealers, and senior officials at the SEC, discussing a 2023 corporate action by NextBridge Hydrocarbons that would have required shareholders to transfer their shares to the transfer agent, not a broker-dealer. Transfers that could have exposed unreconciled short positions, shares that did not exist, inside a non-trading company after FINRA's U3 halt. Behind closed doors, regulators and Wall Street coordinated, not to unwind the damage, but to manage it. Let me be very clear. The FIF represents broker-dealers. FINRA claims to regulate those broker-dealers independently. The SEC is supposed to oversee FINRA, not coordinate with a broker-dealer lobbying group about the fate of a specific security. And yet, they did. Behind closed doors. This isn't about a bad trade. It's about a system protecting itself. The emails show regulators and brokers confronting a simple reality. There were not enough real shares. This FOIA email is a smoking gun. The facts are documented. The harm is real. And it leaves one unavoidable question. Who were they really protecting? All right. Well, thank you for that interlude and welcome back. I think we've got the sound system sorted out here. Very strange that I made a rookie mistake in the beginning. That maybe not so strange, but that Heidi's sound all of a sudden would be all screwed up. So perhaps the Democrats don't want this assembly enlightenment campaign we're running here to progress, but we're going to give it another shot. So Heidi, let's see. We got you live?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
I got you live 5x5. It's so good to have you back. Okay, great. I want to get right back to where we were. So, because this is really a very critical time for your state. You've explained how the Democrats have really marshaled themselves and they feel like now is the time to pounce. From where you're sitting, what did you learn running a statewide campaign that most people still don't understand about Colorado politics that might help the folks at caucusing this weekend start to see through a more clear lens and when they're starting to make candidate selections? Because the governor's race is huge and the Colorado congressional race is critically important because that actually impacts the rest of the country.
Many lessons. One of the key lessons is that money does matter. You've got to raise enough money to go toe to toe with the Democrats. And so the candidates who are going to win the primary need to get right to work and raise millions and millions of dollars. The Democrats will spend upwards of $30 million in the governor's race, and the congressional races are very, very pricey also. The Democrats have no lack of resources. And I thought I was naive enough to think that I could outwork the money. You can't. You just can't. And what they do is they save it till right when the ballots drop. We have a 30-day election here in Colorado. It's all mail-in ballots. It's horrible. But what happens is they save every penny until that day those ballots drop. And that's when the voters start to pay attention and they swarm the airwaves with TV commercials, cable commercials, digital advertisements, huge flyers in the inboxes. And by then, if they lie about you, it's too late. You don't have a lot of time or resources to refute what they're saying. So it's really important that we have candidates that understand that. The second thing is you've got to be able to deal with the liberal media. You've got to go toe to toe with them. No fear. You've got to answer their questions, be bold, address things head on. And many of our candidates right now are playing bob and weave and duck the media, duck questions, duck debates. That does not work in Colorado. You've got to take the Kyle Clarks, who's our infamous bad guy on the left head on and deal with them. And so those are the two key things. The money and getting the message to break through the liberal media are two of the hardest things to do in Colorado.
Yeah. So let's just kind of run through quickly, just on the governor's side in Colorado, who some of the candidates are right now. The Dems have already caucused, and they've pretty much come up with Phil Weiser, your current attorney general. Break him down a little bit for the assembly so that they understand, the significance of why you certainly need to get money behind a Republican candidate that can beat Phil Weiser.
Oh, goodness, Ann. He has sued the Trump administration, I think, 50 plus times. Anytime Trump looks at Colorado the wrong way, he sues the Trump administration. He is as corrupt as they come. He's part of the Democrat machine. He is probably part of the reason our elections are not trustworthy. And he smiles. He sounds good. He's nice enough when you meet him, but he's part of all the worst things that happen in the Democrat world in Colorado. And his mission is really to drive the progressive agenda. He's coming off as a little bit moderate because he's going up against Michael Bennet, but he needs to convince the moderate Democrats that he's okay. But his policies are absolutely progressive, as far left as you can go.
Wow. Okay. Now on the Republican side, I know we ran a previous reel of you going on and doing a selfie talk with the folks in Colorado with respect to the fact that you were not backing this particular candidate, Victor Marx, going forward. In the Colorado Republican race, what is it, about 30 candidates, I think, if I last count, that are running. It's almost like Florida. We have got an insane amount of people running down here in Florida as well.
Yeah.
I don't want to make this about the governor's race because, when you look at it, the money is everything. Are there any Republican candidates, whether it's Victor Marx, Scott Bottoms, or anybody else for that matter that's running? Is there anybody else that potentially has the ability to raise that kind of money to be competitive with Phil Weiser at this point?
I haven't seen it. I don't see any outside efforts raising tens of millions of dollars, which is what would be needed in order to win the governor's race here. Raising $30 to $50 million is going to be a requirement. It's just got to happen. I don't see that happening. I don't get a clear message coming through on what the candidates are actually going to accomplish. I've said this numerous times, if I don't understand what they're trying to accomplish, if they get elected, the voters certainly are not going to. So they've got to get much clearer about that. And I believe there's one candidate, Scott Bottoms is the darling of the grassroots. And Barb Kirkmeyer is the darling of the more moderate, you call them establishment voters. And Victor came kind of in, and I don't know, just he hasn't been involved in politics here. And he basically registered as a Republican in 2020. So he hasn't been part of the grassroots efforts, the caucusing, the bloody war we've been in for a long time. So I know a lot of people respect the work he's done with his nonprofit. But as far as Colorado goes, he's got a big learning curve to be able to get on the debate stage against Phil Weiser or Michael Bennet and go toe to toe with them on policy and the things that matter to everyday Coloradans.
So let's talk about the assembly, because the assembly is who determines who gets on the ballot. You have a 30% threshold. You've got delegates who are the gatekeepers of the candidates. And there's a lot of tension between the establishment-backed candidates, the grassroots-supported candidates. So talk to us about how Pueblo makes those choices strategically.
Yeah, and there's two ways you can get on the ballot statewide here in Colorado. You can petition on, so you have to get 1,500 signatures from each congressional district that are they're actual registered Republicans, and they have not signed another candidate's petition before they signed yours. So it's a lot trickier than it sounds. Then you can go the assembly route, and that's where you go in front of 3,000 registered Republicans who are strong grassroots advocates, and they've been elected at the precinct level, county level, and then they got elected to go to the state assembly. The state assembly is what's happening on Saturday, April 11th. And each candidate will get up, speak for 6 minutes, and then there will be a vote. If there's not a clear winner, if one candidate gets 71% and no other candidate gets 30, then it's done, right? Because Victor and Barb both petitioned on, Barb's not actually going to the assembly. She is counting on the fact that her petitions are going to get her onto the ballot. if Victor's going to the assembly, if his petitions end up coming through, which we don't know yet if he has enough, then he only needs to get 10% of the vote at the assembly. If it doesn't, then he needs to get 30%. So you've really got Scott Bottoms vying for those delegates. We call them delegates.
Right.
Or Victor Marks vying for those delegates. You've got Maria Orms. You've got Jason Mikesell, Bob Moore. You've got a few others. But the real competition is probably going to be between Scott Bottoms and Victor Marks to see how things land. But Maria Orms or Jason Mikesell or another candidate could come through and surprise people. The funny thing at these assemblies is if they give a really good speech, we've seen the apple cart upended and anything can happen. They're very unpredictable, these assemblies are.
So is the assembly still controlled, or is the grassroots, in your opinion, finally taking root or taking it back?
Well, the problem is for the grassroots is that you can petition on. So like Barb Kirkmeyer is not going to the assembly at all. She's going, if her petitions are valid, which I think they will be, she had a professional firm do the work, then she'll be on the primary ballot. So she doesn't need to come, which it rubs the grassroots the wrong way. So what Victor's trying to do is straddle both. So he's got like a get out of jail free card if the petitions come through. And then he's going to try and make a statement at the assembly. Scott Bottoms has gone all in on the assembly and the grassroots route, and he's been working this for over a year and a half, and he will definitely have delegates lined up.
Okay, well, are you going to be going to Pueblo this weekend?
I am. I'm not going as a delegate. I'm going as a reporter for Rocky Mountain Voice. So I'm going to stay neutral and try and just sit back and watch and report from there. We're going to live tweet from it. So there'll be lots of exciting stuff to watch on Rocky Mountain Voice.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Is anybody live streaming from there?
You know, I don't know if they are or not. We may do a little bit of live streaming here and there, but it's pretty hard to do in the whole stadium. And it's actually a really long, slow day. I don't know that it would be exciting TV, but we'll definitely give you the highlights.
Got it. I recall the last one. There seemed to be there's always shenanigans in any of these things. So let's move into the congressional races. CD8. Would you categorize the CD8 race as probably the most important race in Colorado for congressional, at least?
Yes. In fact, Gabe Evans is up against the Democrat machine who really wants it back. He took it from the Democrats last time, and they are going to fight tooth and nail to flip it back. And it's actually marked one of the most important races in the whole country. And it's a dead heat. It could go either way, depending on message, depending on resources. But something that Gabe Evans is taking a gamble on, which I'm not sure I agree with, is he's taking very moderate votes. Like he is actually supporting this Dignity Act that's coming up around immigration. And the base does not like that. And same thing's happening in CD3 with Jeff Hurd, our current congressman. Those two are playing a very moderate card. But you need your base to turn out, especially in a non-presidential year. You get about 70% turnout of registered Republicans, and the unaffiliated who lean Republican are even lower of a turnout. So that's a very dangerous play in my mind.
So break down what happened in CD8 with respect to the endorsement, the pulled endorsement, and then coming back around again.
Yeah, that was CD3. So it's
CD3. Excuse me.
That's okay. It's confusing. Yeah. CD3 is Jeff Hurd. That's Lauren Boebert's old district. She moved over to CD4, which is where I live. And Jeff Hurd won a very close race last time against the Democrats. And he plays it very safe. In fact, so safe that President Trump got very frustrated with him and pulled his endorsement and gave it to Hope Scheppelman, who's much more of a grassroots favorite, an activist, just strong, hardcore conservative. And she had jumped into primary Jeff Hurd. So she just went to work for the Trump administration, and President Trump talked her out of, getting out of the race and doing that. And now he switched his endorsement back to Jeff Hurd. But the Republican base in Colorado doesn't forget that easily, and they are not happy about some of the votes he's made. And it'll be interesting to see if they show up and they can create unity in CD3, because that's going to be a very, very tight race. And that's Pueblo, Durango, Grand Junction, the whole western slope.
So if you had to make a prediction, strictly as a media person, which way do you think CD3 goes? Is it going to stay with Jeff, or is it going to move into Democrat territory?
Jeff needs to get on the ground, show up, talk to people face to face, and reconnect with his base. He has to be very, very diligent about that. And then I think he can eke it out. But boy, is it going to be tight.
So if Colorado loses 2 seats, because right now you are holding 4, if you lose 2 of them, it really upends your state. You become, I would say, deep blue at this point.
Yes, it's bizarre that, I mean, I love that we have 4 out of the 8 congressional seats, but it drives the Democrats nuts. We did a redistricting initiative with an independent redistricting commission a couple years ago, and it turned out pretty even, right? But they are trying a last-ditch effort to do kind of what Virginia did and some of the other Democrat states are trying to do with redistricting and override that commission, but it wouldn't be effective for this year. It'd be for 28 and 30, which is another conversation that's very dangerous. But right now, we've got to hold these seats, because if that happens, it's going to be more important that we go in as incumbents and not fighting the Democrats.
So talk to us about the race that Gabe Evans is challenged right now, is facing right now.
In CD8,
Yeah.
or Jeff Hurd CD3, Gabe Evans in CD8. Gabe he was in law enforcement. He's a young guy, he's very articulate, he's a good man. He's got the typical consultant class around him, so I think they're the ones trying to convince him to moderate and to make these votes they're going to upset the base, which really worries me. So I'm a little
How
worried
so?
about
Why would that
race.
upset the base?
Well, because he's made some votes that went against President Trump. And our base wants one thing right now. They want loyalty to President Trump. They want you to have his back if you're in Congress. Not to mention, a lot of people are really frustrated with the inaction of Congress overall and just rolling our eyes at, like, why can't anybody get things done? So the engagement's people are already rolling their eyes and like, why even go vote? Because they don't do anything. And then you layer that on, butting up against President Trump and not supporting his agenda when we sent you to DC to do just that. There's even more frustration. So then he's got to pull more from the unaffiliateds that lean Republican, and there are not a lot of those. When you split up the unaffiliated vote in Colorado, it's as bad as 70-30 in some areas. It's typically about 65-35 overall, but you've got 2 million unaffiliated voters out of the 4 million active registered voters in Colorado. And if you split those 70-30 and put the URs with the UDs with their parties, we've got a 500,000 voter gap statewide. That's why it's so hard to win statewide. And then in those congressional districts, it's really, really tough to pull people that are unaffiliated that typically vote Democrat your way. And they don't change their vote very often. It drives me nuts, Ann, when people are like, oh, there's 2 million unaffiliated voters. They're just squishy and we can win them over. No. Only a very small, thin slice of those unaffiliated voters actually will be willing to vote differently than they normally do. And so you've really got Republicans and Democrats. They're just registered as unaffiliated, but they act as if they're party.
So let's talk about what's shifting in Colorado politically, because right now you're not solid blue. It's still very contested, but you are leaning into dangerous waters if you lose those 2 congressional seats, which, as you said, will impact President Trump, the potential for him to be impeached, because it's, we're sort of teetering on that edge right now. So if you were going to be speaking to Colorado voters, or Colorado voters were speaking to us right now, what are their key issues that they're really concerned about? Is it affordability? Is it crime? Is it governance? What is driving the voter sentiment down in your state?
Well, very different conversations with Republicans and unaffiliateds that lean Democrat. They are worried about affordability, mostly the younger people. It's becoming unaffordable to live in Colorado. A lot of people are moving out. There were just some statistics today that showed an exodus from Colorado. It's much harder to run a business now. There's so much regulation. They've jacked up the salaries or the requirements for hourly pay, and just put lots of onerous restrictions and regulations on small business owners. So it's made it very difficult. So you've got businesses leaving, you've got young people leaving because they can't afford to live here. And you've got crime rates skyrocketing. They have been for a few years. I ran on fixing crime as the daughter of a cop in 22, and things have not gotten better. In fact,
what's driving the crime rate in your state?
Oh my gosh, it's just California 2.0. They let everybody out of jail. They don't hold anybody accountable. We're a sanctuary state, so there's not really a border to Colorado. Fentanyl deaths are going up instead of down like in most other states around the country. We have I-25 and I-70 that split the state, which are drug smuggling corridors and human trafficking too. So it's very, very scary. I just walked out of a restaurant the other day, got in my car on Broadway, south of Denver, and all of a sudden I look up and there's a homeless person who's on drugs staring right in my window and banging on my window to get out of the car. Like this stuff
Wow.
happens all the time. It's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah, that is, do you think some of that was from passing legislation to make, marijuana, free, available, decriminalized? Did that sort of follow it or no? Because we've been challenged with that here in Florida.
Yeah, I mean, we've had legal marijuana for a long time, and a lot of that's been pushed into the black market because they've raised the taxes so high on the legal marijuana. And then we legalized mushrooms. I mean, it's the crime, like the punishment if you get caught with fentanyl, or if somebody you give fentanyl to or sell fentanyl to dies or is injured, is very, very low. It's ridiculous. It's like a drug-friendly state here. Not to mention we're an abortion tourism state because you can have abortion up until birth here. And you you pretty much lose your rights as a parent if you push back on the transgender stuff at all in the schools.
It's pretty shocking considering you've been able to hold a line for the for the Republicans in Colorado, that you have all of these liberal policies. I mean, abortion up into the day you're born is really murder in my book, but
Yep.
who am I? I'm just a conservative voter out here in Florida, just calling it like I see it. And again, the legalization of mushrooms, marijuana, et cetera, all these things is of concern considering you're looking at, homeless people on drugs coming up to your car in a good part of Colorado. This is not like you went down into the slums. This is what I find concerning for a state. And this is what I see happening in Florida, that it's the rhinos that really are more like Democrats dressed up to be Republican, and they lean left and they color themselves with a big R, but there isn't really a difference anymore. Do you think the uniparty has pretty much grabbed a hold of your state and they're just pretending to be R's and D's, that there's a difference?
Yeah, one thing that's really frustrating for me, Anne, is the consultant class. And the consultants don't care if us Republican candidates win or lose. They get paid either way. And they've just milked the system for years. And the same people are giving advice to our candidates that have lost us Colorado for 20 years. They need to go bye-bye. They need to go away and let some new talented people come up the ranks to help our candidates actually win and raise money and play a new game. It's a new world. And they've got to get in it with digital and fundraising and the different way that we speak to voters and what Gen Z and young people want. It's a very different world than it was 10, 20 years ago. And the same people are spouting off about how to win Colorado, and they always lose.
If you were speaking to if you didn't have the media hat on and you were speaking to the delegates that are going to be at Assembly this weekend, what would be the advice you would give them so they could look clear-eyed through a good lens and see what's really important to salvage Colorado, save Colorado, to keep it from turning blue completely, and also have an impact on what's going to happen across America?
Well, most importantly, you need to pick candidates who are going to be kind of bulletproof, that the liberal media are not going to have a heyday with, and, with a background that's going to be fodder for them. Pick someone who's stable, who can speak well, who knows how to go up against the liberal media and make a good argument, who can go toe to toe on the debate stage with other candidates and make us proud and start to message the things that we care about. Someone who knows what the inside and outs of conservative policies are in Colorado and the damage that's been done to our state, so they can articulate that. We like to say, publish the crazy. That's what we do at Rocky Mountain Voice. We publish the crazy things that the Democrats have done to Colorado, because again, we're like frogs in boiling water. A lot of people have just kind of gone along to get along over the years, and they wake up and it's like, what happened? What happened to our state? Well, those of us that have been here a long time, we remember what it was like to live in Colorado, and I'm sure you do too as a CU buff, when we were truly the wild, wild west, the new frontier, and the place you came to do big things that you couldn't do in other states.
That's right. And Colorado used to be that state, and it seems to me that it is going in the completely wrong direction. Having spent a month out there recently, I was really disturbed by what I was seeing. It seems that the lights were on, but nobody was home. A lot of people seemed vacant. No, really. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying this because they were walking around high, but just people seem to kind of be checked out in the state. I didn't see the same vibrance that I recall even 10 years ago,
Yep.
visiting family and whatnot in Colorado. It's completely different now. And I don't want to see it continue to slide that direction, because I always have such fond memories of that state. And the people always were very outgoing, very fit, very engaged. And it seems like they're a little bit disengaged in some aspects. And it could be just the Denver metro area I was in. I don't know. But
No,
it's such a beautiful state. It has such potential. And it's such a critical state, too, when it comes to, natural resources that America is going to depend upon and has been dependent upon. So not to mention the tech resources that you guys have there. You've become a very tech heavy,
Yeah.
state, and you offer a lot to America. What are the biggest mistakes that Republicans are making right now? And if you were going to pin one of the races that is the most important race in your state that people really aren't talking about because you have so many perhaps governors, Republican governor candidates, what are the two things that we should be looking for? The mistakes that Republicans are making, and then, of course, the race that people aren't talking about.
Well, I think the first thing that I tell people is you are the leader you've been waiting for. Like there's no
Yeah.
one coming to save the day, and you've got to get involved in your own neighborhood, your block, your precinct. It's broken down to precincts. So figure out who your precinct chair is, get to know them very well, and work your neighborhood. Get people to turn out to vote, educate them on the candidates. Candidates, you need to get much clearer and more direct about what you're going to accomplish if the voters take a risk on voting for you. They've got to know in one or two sentences what your passion is, what you're going to get done. Are you going to fix potholes? Are you going to fix crime? Are you going to make it affordable? Whatever it is. And then you can articulate in a longer format later. And then finally, you've got to be able, you've got to have candidates that are brave and bold and can take on the liberal media and the Democrat machine fearlessly without a lot of baggage, and know that they can message and articulate our policies and what we want to do as conservatives differently in Colorado than what's happened here over the last 20 years.
Heidi, when you talk about affordability, what is top on the list for affordability in Colorado? Is it property tax, the elimination thereof? Is it the cost of housing, the mortgage rates, the job market? What is it that's topping the list for affordability?
Well, when I ran just a few years ago, I ran on going to zero income tax over 4 years. That would be a really great move for Colorado. Even the Democrats talk about it now. And then also reducing regulation. So I ran on reducing the bureaucracy in Colorado by 40% during my first term, or 10% a year. The government has grown out of control. The state budget has doubled. It's just insane, the amount of
In
bureaucracy.
4 years, the state budget has doubled in 4 years.
In 10 years.
10
Yep.
years, okay.
It's
Still.
I think $50 billion now. And most of that is just bureaucracy at its worst. I mean, that's gotta be addressed. You've got to Doge Colorado too. There's so much corruption. And
Where do you
that's
start?
yeah, I mean, you just have to audit the snot out of everything and provide transparency. There's ways to do that now with AI and with blockchain. You can protect certain things like our vote, like we can protect our vote. Do you know in Colorado, who audits our elections? The Secretary of State that's so corrupt, Jenna Griswold. There's
Right.
no outside agency that does that. There's so many problems with our elections here in Colorado, and we've got to fix that before we can win, honestly. And there's not much being done. The candidates aren't talking about it, and that has to happen at the local level. The county clerks can do a lot with our voter rolls, getting rid of the machines, doing audits, doing signature verification differently. There's lots of different things they can do to make our elections better at the local level, but no one's talking about it except some of our great Secretary of State candidates. We've got a couple people that are running that are really articulate and know the game. In fact, James Wiley, who's running for Secretary of State, has sued the snot out of Jenna Griswold several times and tried to highlight what she did to Tina Peters into our elections. So the Secretary of State race is really, really important, only to highlight what's happening with our elections, even if James or JJ can't win.
So I'm glad you brought up Tina Peters, because I want to get to her in a second here. And I know you all have a reporter that's dedicated to covering her, and just has met with Tina several times, which is fantastic, at the Rocky Mountain News. The Rocky Mountain
Voice.
Excuse me, Rocky Mountain
It's okay.
News.
The Rocky Mountain News was a big paper here for a long time.
It was a big paper. I used to read it. It was interesting. I loved the format. It was like the New York Post. It was really nice to read. But anyhow, the Secretary of State race, considering that Jenna Griswold, I call her a criminal of the worst variety, Trump has, signed an executive order. I personally just think it's going to be so legally challenged. It's going to be difficult to get it done. That being said, is there any sense of, are people receptive to the executive order so that the midterms can't be stolen? As we're seeing, midterm races right now in the, in the early phases right now are looking like the machines are still being problematic, and we still have voter rolls that are incredibly dirty, particularly here in Florida. We have a problem with our voter rolls. Nobody seems too anxious to clean them up. Even our own Secretary of States down here and the supervisors of elections clearly aren't interested in doing that either. So how is this going to manifest in Colorado if you don't, if we don't get some sort of SAVE Act passed and or people are, don't legally, shall I say, the executive order is, ineffective because it's legally challenged into an oblivion?
There's no way that Jenna Griswold, as our Secretary of State, or Phil Weiser, as our Attorney General, are going to honor the executive order. And even if the SAVE Act gets passed, come on, Senate, you can do it. Then they won't honor that either. They'll take it to court and they'll tie it up in court, and it's going to be very difficult to make any changes in 2026 for the midterms. But locally, the county clerks can make different decisions and do things differently, and they have to have a spine of steel because they're going to get pushback from the Secretary of State.
Well, in considering the current Tina Peters disposition and the fact that this is going back down to the lower court where she was sentenced, is there any hope that she's going to get released before the midterms?
I sure hope so, but this is the same judge that gave her 9 years. So
right.
Where's
the incentive for clerks to stand up like Tina Peters did?
Well, here's what they need to do, Ann. The majority of our county commissioners in Colorado are Republican. If you look at the numbers, the county commissioners at every single county need to get a spine and learn what they can do to support their county clerk. They also hire and fire their county attorney, and they can pick a county attorney who's fearless, who will go in and fight for their clerk if the clerk has the guts to do the right things. And I have a little group that I'm part of called the Colorado Institute for Fair Elections, and we're part of all the big networks across the country, but we're putting together a series of things that the counties can do to fix what they can before the election this fall. And I think it will help, like things like secure the drop boxes. We've got 400 plus drop boxes across Colorado that aren't monitored. They can clean up the voter rolls. They can make the U.S. Post Office in their county report back about the undeliverable ballots. We found 30,000 undeliverable ballots after the 2022 election that were unaccounted for in some of the biggest counties. They just poof, gone. So there's lots of things they can do to tighten up their elections at a local level, but they've got to have chutzpah, and they've got to have county commissioners and a county attorney that will have their back, but that's possible.
Okay. Are there county commissions, or should they say there are counties that stand out in your mind that the commissioners might actually stand up to hire and fire a better attorney that will have the clerk's back?
Yes, there are. In fact, I'm really proud of our El Paso County clerk, Steve, who has gone up against the Clerks Association, which is run by a Republican who is, his wife works for Dominion. He's done everything he can to make it more difficult to be a Republican in Colorado, honestly. But he just left. He took his county out of that organization and said, he's not going to be a part of it. And he's trying to do some really innovative things to clean up the voter rolls and to get El Paso County, which is a huge county, and it's one of the districts, the congressional districts, it's so important. It's CD5 with Jeff Crank, trying to get it in line. But now he's persona non grata with the rest of the clerks and with the Clerks Association. So he's got a tough road to hoe, but kudos to him for standing up, and maybe he'll inspire some others to do the same thing, like Mesa County, Weld County, Douglas County.
What about Boulder County?
Funny enough, Boulder County has been pretty cooperative with our group. So I'm not going to say anything bad about them. But Douglas County, where I live, the county clerk has not cooperated with us at all. In fact, I did an audit after my election in 22 and asked to see the paper ballots, and it took 9 months in legal representation to get access. And we found that there was remote Wi-Fi capabilities in the machine after she told us there weren't. We found the drop boxes weren't being monitored correctly. We found the U.S. Post Office numbers were off. So even in a Republican stronghold county like Douglas County with a Republican clerk, we had all kinds of issues.
Is there any hope at all that we're ever going to see paper ballots one day voting for federal elections, voter ID, et cetera, hand counts?
Trump's got to raise a fuss, and Congress has to actually get a spine and do something and memorialize it. And counties, at the county level, people have to get really strong and really loud and say, we're not going to take it anymore. And all of those things have to happen in a time when we're being really complacent already. So it's really worrisome.
Does this require a sheriff to have a spine as well?
I think so. The interesting thing is, we've been doing some research. I think the sheriffs can figure out, they can get the information about who's an illegal alien or a non-citizen immigrant on our voter rolls,
Yeah.
and help the clerks clean those up. So that would be a great asset to the county clerks and the county commissioners if they could have a sheriff too that had the kahunas to do that.
Who has to make the motion to make that request, to get that ball in motion, to engage the sheriff and the county clerk and the commission to actually do it? Does the people just show up to the commissioners meeting and say, hey, we want to do this? Can we take a vote?
Bingo. And what you need to do is go to your county commissioner meetings. You get 2 minutes public comment,
Right.
write letters, make phone calls, put the pressure on. Our little group has 5 things that you can ask your county commissioners to do. We're happy to put that out. You can just email Heidi at RockyMountainVoice.com and I'll get that to you. But we will help. We will have your back and we will educate you on how to do this. And that's what Rocky Mountain Voice is all about, is educating voters about how to make a difference. And you can at the local level in your elections. It's hard work. It's not fun. You're going to get yelled at. You're going to get called names, but we have a country to save.
We have a country to save. All right, Heidi, I'm going to give you the last word. You've got a great website here, Rocky Mountain Voice. I was on it. You have some great articles on here as well. Folks, if you're in Colorado, you should head over to Rocky Mountain Voice, go through this website, read all these articles. They've done a great job of chronicling pretty much everything that's going on across your beautiful state with respect to a lot of the politics that are plaguing your state. And I hate to say the word plaguing, but it is plaguing your state like it's plaguing the rest of us. You guys aren't a lost state, Heidi. You have a lot of potential, and you've got some really significant races. If as an outsider looking in, the congressional races in Colorado are the most important from where I'm sitting, because it impacts all of America. It's not just Colorado, it impacts America. And President Trump is in a perilous position. If he loses these midterms and we slide any more blue across these other races that we've already been seeing happen across the country, and Colorado goes in that direction, it's going to be very difficult for him not to be able to survive what I would think would be an impeachment that is going to be just on steroids, because they didn't get him the last time. They're going to definitely come for him this time. And that might actually terminate his presidency. We don't know. It could be that bad. So your state is not totally lost. There is still hope. It's a very contested state. And I believe what is going to happen this weekend in Assembly is going to tell us, what direction the country's going. Frankly, it's pretty critical at this point. So last word from you on everything that the Assembly would want to know from you and the voters of Colorado would want to know from where you're sitting.
Yeah, I don't believe Colorado's a lost state. We've got to fix our elections. We've got to get our message really, really clear about how we're going to do things differently from the conservative side, and call out the Democrats and their craziness, publish and promote the crazy that they're doing. And we've got to be bold and strong and go up against the liberal media, which is why we created Rocky Mountain Voice. We've got a team of 50 citizen journalists from around the state. And we have an amazing editor, Jen, and Tori, my daughter's on the team. We've got incredible investigative reporters that are on our team, uncovering all kinds of things that the liberal media won't cover here in Colorado. And it's free. There's no ads, paywalls. You just go sign up and you'll get a newsletter 4 or 5 times a week telling you what the news is, or you can go to the website or our social media. But follow along, share it. The more people that join, the more people get the truth, and the more we can wake up the rest of Colorado to vote, engage, and win again.
Heidi, thank you so much. And before we actually go tonight, I want to just take a moment, because Tina Peters is a very dear friend. And we've talked a lot about the Assembly, the races, the strategy, the power plays, all of it. But this doesn't mean anything, honestly, Heidi, if we forget what this fight's really about. And so that's why I want to dedicate what you and I talked about to people like Tina Peters, true heroes, because whether people want to say it out loud or not, her case, that really has become the line in the sand. It's a test. And it's not just a test of the system, but it's a test on all of us. And I was out in Colorado. I tried to see her several times. I got basically ignored by the prison. I did all the proper paperwork. So whether it's me or anybody else, or frankly, your team, which has done a great job of covering her situation, we have to be willing to take a stand on these things, especially when it's uncomfortable. And I know that you have, like you said, you've got clerks out there that have got to get a spine and they've got to stand up and they've got to have a county attorney that's going to stand with them, because these things are risky and they come with consequences. And Tina, I think, is one of them. So we have, whether we choose to stay silent, call it a strategy, we don't have to agree with everything, but we have to, get involved in this movement. We have to ask ourselves, what happens if the system turns on one of its own? And that's what the system did. It happened to turn on Tina. And if nobody stands up, well, then that's when this problem is going to spread. That's when it's going to grow. It's going to become what we call normalization. And I think we've watched our country become normalized, in the wrong direction. Frankly, we're normalizing too many bizarre things. Mm-hmm. And your state is case in point when you're talking about, having homeless people banging on your car door high as kites in a good residential area. So we have got to, understand what really matters here, what's really on the line. And I think we've got to take a bigger stand. So I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the fact that you're articulate on this, Heidi, and that you can stand up and give people an action plan, that you also threw your hat in the ring. You were part of the fight. And, you have sort of imparting what you've learned on everybody out there, particularly for those that are still in these races in Colorado. So God bless you. And thank you for everything that you've done for your beautiful state.
Well, thank you, Ann. And that's a really good point about Tina Peters. We've got to stand up for her. And that's something the delegates should ask the candidates. I know a couple candidates are waffling on pardoning Tina if they get elected. There should be no waffling. Tina Peters should get pardoned if you're elected to the governor of Colorado. So that's a clear delineation. And they need to ask the candidates about that, because that is taking a stand for what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, Heidi. Thank you so much for coming by, and stick with me. I'll be right back after we, cut the stream. You guys, thanks for being here, and have a great night, everybody. We'll see you again next time.